Kid BUU, the infamous clone himself, and one of the last rappers to emerge from the dying breaths of the SoundCloud scene. He was able to push himself into the spotlight for a few months in 2018 in hopes of becoming a mainstay artist, but it never happened. So why is that, and why does nobody respect Kid BUU even to this day? Well, you can start to piece together why he didn't make it far in the rap game by looking at the first part of my statement. He's definitely a clout chaser, and clout chasing never gets you far in the rap game. But this story runs a little bit deeper than just basic clout chasing. So let's look at the life and career of Kid BUU and find out exactly how he ended up the way that he did. This is the rise and fall of Kid BUU. Kid BUU was born in New Jersey in 1988, making him 35 years old right now in 2023. He grew up in poverty with just a single mother. He spent a couple years in school before he was pulled out and homeschooled throughout his high school years. In one interview, he recalls being so poor at the time that the government would actually have to pay for his lunches because his mom couldn't afford to feed him. He would also grow up in a fairly violent neighborhood where he would watch people get shot and die, and on top of all of that, his mom was extremely strange, believing in aliens, following cults, and shaving swastikas into her hair when he was growing up. This would all have to do with the religion realism, which if you look into it, it's somewhat of a cult that believes in cloning, aliens, and a lot of other weird type of shit. Their symbol is actually a Star of David with the swastika put inside, and if you look closely at Kid BUU's chest, you can see he actually has this tatted on him. So as you can see, BUU didn't really have the best childhood. He would start to retreat into anime to cope with the terrible life that he had growing up, and he wasn't cool at all, so he couldn't play sports, and he just overall wasn't very respected as a kid. This lack of attention as a kid probably led him to be a clout chaser later in life, as he was just seeking validation from anywhere that he could get it. At the age of 17, he would get a girl pregnant, and she would birth his daughter 9 months later. Unfortunately, his daughter also had to grow up in a turbulent home, as he himself was heavily involved in the cult and was very physically violent to her mother. There's a little bit of conflicting information here, because in one interview, Kid BUU actually mentions that he joined realism 8 years ago, which means that he would have joined it at the age of 28, but in another interview, he actually mentions that his mother was involved in it, so that means he would have grown up in the cult, so it's hard to say, but either way, he was violent. BUU would often smack his girlfriend around, and one night it actually went even farther than that when he pulled out a gun on her and told her that if she called the cops, he would kill them. He was apparently high on drugs and extremely drunk at the time, but luckily neighbors were able to contact authorities after hearing the two screaming at each other, and BUU was safely detained. This landed him some time in jail for an unknown amount of time, and after that, most of his 20s are shrouded in mystery until he would re-emerge in Toronto, Canada when he was around 28 years old. Here he would attempt to start a rap career under the name Humongous the God. He even got a nose job as well to try to distance himself from his past, and most speculate that he actually fled to Canada because he was attempting to escape child support. Once he arrived in Toronto, he would start dropping non-stop mixtapes, starting with Man vs. God, following that up with a part 2, and many more after that. His rap style was clearly trying to bite many other local rappers in the area, and since he didn't really add any charm or personality to his tracks, he never gained a whole lot of traction. This wouldn't stop him though, as he would begin pouring tons of money into his career, paying to appear on local radio shows where nobody really knew who he was, throwing big parties where he would hire strippers to dance around him, and he would even pay thousands of dollars to get the Migos on a song with him. After that failed though, he decided he needed to rebrand and would rename himself to Kid BUU. He dyed his hair red in attempts of joining the clout era that was already starting to burn out around this time. Of course, like any good clout demon, he would start to pull antics. One of these antics included burning a pig with a flamethrower and other stuff just of that ilk. Basically just turning himself into a bargain bin little pump. Some of these antics did get him some minor attention online, but not enough to launch a whole rap career off of, so he decided to start buying followers in hopes of boosting himself in the algorithm. He then dropped his clearly X-inspired track Death to SoundCloud on WorldStar, paying people to promote it online. This finally got him the attention he wanted, and he started to roll with it. And I know what you're thinking, why is the song called Death to SoundCloud when he's a very generic looking SoundCloud rapper? Well, it's because he explained that he's the last demon to fly out of the pit of hell that was SoundCloud. His words, not mine. I don't know. Next came his tracks Dead Roses and Papa. The first track was an attempt to bite Lil Uzi style, while Papa was more of a little pump type track. The buzz from these tracks were enough to get him on a DJ Vlad interview that would become very infamous in the following weeks. In this interview, BUU would claim that he was a clone created through the Clonade program.
Originally, my first gen. I'm a second gen now. That's why you see the celebrity bursts say I'm born in Toronto, but that's false. My first gen was born in Jersey. However, I was cloned by Clonade in Canada. My model number is 0112568, if anyone wants to see the registration in Clonade.
A lot of people saw this as a clout move, and it definitely was, but at the same time, Clonade is actually a real program used by Realism. It successfully cloned a sheep in the past, and they were going to use it on humans at one point. It was basically only created to try to rope in homosexual couples into thinking that they could clone themselves and have a legitimate child that way, but it was never really farther than that. The experiment actually ended years ago, as it was seen as inhumane and just a complete waste of time, but here was Kid BUU bringing it up again years later. This made the people at Realism actually very upset, and they would end up kicking him out of the cult because of this situation. Of course, nobody really actually believed BUU's claims that he was a clone, but it did get him a lot of buzz online and a lot of talk around his name, so it kind of worked out for him in that way. In 2023, BUU would try to claim that this was all a joke, but I highly doubt it. I think it was just a clout move. BUU would double down after this and even hopped on an Instagram live in attempts to show people he really was a clone by using an editing trick that mirrored the screen. Later on, BUU would actually say this was a publicity stunt for views and attention, but he wouldn't actually take direct responsibility for it, just throwing his label under the bus saying they're the ones who wanted him to do this. The real reason that he was actually doing all this bullshit was to try to hide the fact that he had child abuse charges. This wouldn't work though, as really when he was starting to gain a lot of buzz, an ex would come out against him making a YouTube video in which she would expose him for lying about his age, being a violent person, and even calling his music trash. This of course got even more people talking about BUU, which was good for views, but since he was so fresh in the game and barely respected it, her claims really destroyed his momentum. Of course this wouldn't stop him from getting more big name features like Ski Mask the Slump God, and he would even form a connection with Trippie Redd. Throughout 2019 he would continue to drop tracks on World Star like Mama and Blunt featuring Black Youngster, but the hype for him was dying fast. Luckily for BUU though, a beef with the infamous Adam22 kept him relevant for a few more weeks. Adam came out against BUU claiming that he was harassing him constantly for an interview, and Adam would decline each time, leading BUU to actually try to hire people to steal Adam's cat. After that fell through, BUU would attempt to hire people to jump Adam, but once again it fell through. BUU would claim the real reason that Adam was after him is because Lena liked his music and that hurt Adam's ego, but that's probably just a lot of cope on BUU's end. BUU eventually did infiltrate the No Jumper store though with his connection through Boonk. When Boonk did that infamous interview where he was so drunk that he couldn't even stand up and he ended up falling down, BUU was the one who was there to pick him up. Most people took Adam's side on this conflict as BUU had no respect, so once again he had to take another L. BUU also attempted to get on Lyrical Lemonade multiple times, but Cole never responded to him. After this, he began to date Black China in hopes of gaining more clout back. Stories would later surface claiming BUU had struck China in the face while staying in a hotel together. No arrests were made though, leading many to think that this was actually a made-up story for publicity. If that was the true intent behind that, it actually worked because once again he got another week of clout off the conflict, but that's a pretty low level to sink to just to get a little bit of clout. More negative publicity would follow soon after when BUU was in Toronto and he actually ended up getting robbed of his chain. He was able to get his chain back later on, so not a whole lot came from this situation besides the internet taking a chance to laugh at him once again. After failing to get on No Jumper and Lyrical Lemonade, BUU would once again attempt to get some clout by trying to get on the XXL freshman list for 2019 by pitching himself as a clone, but also claiming that every other rapper alive is actually a clone of Lil Wayne. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And it didn't work because he didn't make the list.
And like, yeah, people know me for being a clone, but like the truth is I'm a clone, yeah, but a clone of Lil Wayne. And I think we're all clones of Lil Wayne.
So once again, another L. He then got a microchip removed from his hand on Instagram Live, still running with that clone narrative all the way into 2019. It's uncertain why he had a microchip in his hand. A lot of people in the comments said that there was actually a reason for it besides the cloning stuff, but it's uncertain. After that, another beef would spark between Trippie Redd and Kid BUU, and I have a whole video on that if you want to check it out. It's a little too long to cover here, but basically the synopsis of it is they fell out over a song. BUU was attempting to get on Trippie's album to try to earn back a little bit of respect in the rap game, but Trippie didn't want him on the album and they just kind of fell out from there. BUU would basically milk this situation right into 2020, but after 2020 began, BUU would basically fade out of the public eye. He would drop his debut mixtape under a label known as Revenge of the Clones right at the end of 2019 with a feature from Lil Keed and the aforementioned Blunt song with Youngster, but almost no one cared enough to actually check it out. The thing about BUU is that he was only ever in the news for everything except for his music. He continued to flex fake money on Instagram, rented expensive cars and mansions, and somehow even link up with fellow fallen off rapper Lil Xan. They created a song together that BUU would post on his SoundCloud, only to have the song removed a few weeks later when Xan would reuse the verse on his song Rebound. After BUU's rap career officially died, he decided to start an OnlyFans where he claimed to have made millions of dollars. He quit rapping altogether for a time because of this, and sorry guys, I'm not buying his OnlyFans to research. Maybe somebody stronger than me can take one for the team and, you know, do it for the culture. Just like every other sucker in the year 2022, he decided to start investing a lot of money into shitcoins, but surprisingly, he never ended up actually promoting one of these on his Instagram, so that's one thumbs up for Kid BUU. He took one more shot at Trippie Redd, claiming that he was stealing other people's flows, and then also got in trouble for stealing Yeat's flow on one of his songs, before later coming out and saying that he was going to squash the beef between him and Trippie, but I don't think Trippie has really cared about him for years, so this was kind of meaningless. So that pretty much brings us up to the modern day, where BUU actually still posts videos and songs on his personal YouTube channel, which are heavily inspired by Uzi and Playboi Carti. He also does vlogs from time to time that show that he still has somewhat of a connection with his daughter. He claims in an interview he's actually a single father. It's hard to know what's true and false with this guy, as he's not always the most reliable narrator when it comes to himself, but I don't really see any reason for him to lie about this, so I'm just going to take it as fact. fact. He even flexed on everybody by claiming he dropped 50k in Robux for his daughter, but besides that, BUU has fallen off the face of the fucking planet. Even with the little bit of fame that he does have, he's actually complaining about that, as he's saying that he's getting noticed in public a lot and he can't stand it, so it doesn't really seem like he was even cut out for fame if he actually got it. Definitely managed to buy himself a career for a very short time, but his unsavory past came back to bite him in the butt and destroy all the momentum he had going for himself, leaving him as just a zombie of the SoundCloud era. So what do you think? Is BUU ready for a comeback? He did just have a Michael McCredit interview a month ago where he actually called out other people for buying their success, so that just shows how hypocritical and delusional he still is to this day. And overall in the interview, he just had really weird energy that made me kind of off-put the entire time and made me feel like I was going brain dead, so maybe this guy is just not meant to be anything in the spotlight. So the moral of this story is don't buy your fame, actually earn it, and most of all, don't pretend to be a clone. So thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, leave a Saturn emoji once again in the comments below. Shout out Knife Gang. If you like the video, subscribe. I'm still trying to become the biggest Twisted World on the entire platform, so if you guys can help me do that, I would be forever grateful. But most of all, guys, thanks for watching. Bye.